Hello and welcome. In this video I'll be showing you how to use the INS/GPS, the Tacan and the ILS systems in the T-45C. Now as you can see I'm in the mission editor at the moment. That's because at the time of recording this there was no way of creating or editing a flight plan in the simulator. So if you want to create a flight plan, everything has to be done in mission editor first, and then it will be fed into the aircraft's systems to be flown. So as you can see I've got 4 waypoints. T-45 is going to start here. Each waypoint is set to 3,000 feet, and I'm just basically going to follow that flight plan and show you a couple of extra bits and pieces to go with it. So I'll stop chatting and we'll get into the aircraft. Right, so we're in the cockpit. We want the HSI, which I have loaded on the right MFD here. Now it's preloaded, so there's nothing special you have to put in, but click waypoint and it will bring up a waypoint marker. As you can see, you've got a little triangle here telling you which bearing you basically need to be on. Follow that bearing for 3.1 nautical miles, and then you'll be on to waypoint 2. Now the only problem is, if you've come from flight sim, and I hate comparing the two because they're two totally different entities, but if you're coming off the back of flight sim and you're thinking, okay, well I can just jump into this and just get on with it, there are slight differences, apart from obviously some of the cockpit layout, what's clickable, startup procedures. But if you're doing a waypoint of which you would be setting up the flight plan in the flight plan editor in flight sim like you do with DCS in the mission editor, there's no auto function here. Now what you would do is click auto, and as you get to each waypoint it would automatically go to the next one. This one you have to do manually. So once I get near or to the point of waypoint 1, I would have to click this, and then to get onto waypoint 2, so on and so on. So at that point, you don't forget that that isn't part of this. And then the second point I want to show is a little bit of an extra. You click CDI, which stands for course deviation indicator. Click the course button here, and as you can see, this is the course line, that's the deviation line. Now if we were to bring the course line up to the waypoint marker, the deviation line would fall in line with the course line. That's a lot of lines. Now to get that to where you want it, you have to click these to change the bearing of the course line. Now unfortunately you literally have to click for every single degree that you want. There's no scrolling of the mouse, there's no knob to turn or anything like that to make life easy. You literally have to click each one. Now that's going to get very tedious and very boring very quickly. So I will try my best to use that in this tutorial just to show you, because if you're doing proper navigation you would need this for VORs, TACANs, things like that. Not so much in this flight plan because it's preloaded and predetermined, but I just wanted to show you that if you were to try and stick to the flight plan and you veered off, you could easily get back into it by using the course deviation line. So if we just get on with it, and I stopped the recording by accident, so yeah, let's carry on. Let's try and unpause it this time. So as you can see, if we try and turn so that waypoint marker is in that chevron in the heading tape. As you can see, everything's perfectly in line, so we're going in the right direction. But when we get to waypoint 2, once we get to about half a nautical mile away, I'll switch to waypoint 2. As you can see, I'm veering off slightly to the right. If I was to turn to the left, I could bring that in and save it. Change to waypoint 2. As you can see, the deviation line is veered off because we're not pointing in the right direction. Now I'm going to leave that for now because I think that will come up in the next part of the tutorial. Cool, blimey. Right, so waypoint 2, again we've got a marker on the heading tape, so if we get that inside the chevron, we're good. Tells us which bearing we need to be on, how far it is till the next waypoint, and how long it's going to take us to get there. So just keep following that. As we get to about half a nautical mile, I'll change to waypoint 3. As you can see, it's moved there. So, and there's our waypoint marker there. Okay, just a matter of just following the heading tape, basically. It's as easy as that. Okay, to waypoint 4. Turn on to the next waypoint, which is marked there, again inside the chevron, and just follow it. And that's you followed your flight plan. I mean, just experiment, try different heights, try different speeds, things like that. I mean, speed doesn't really mean too much. I mean, you can take your time on it, it's just a bit of navigation. But you can try varying the altitudes and trying to get things on point, whatever you're into. So that's a very basic flight plan brought in from the mission editor onto the HSI, and easily followed. Again, just clicking the next waypoint, and you always get your waypoint information here. So if you seem a bit confused, then you can always look at that. But there's your marker, the triangle there. Okay, so that's the flight plan, INS/GPS. Now we'll move on to Tacans. Here we are back in the mission editor, and this time we're going to be looking at Tacans, or tactical air navigation, which is basically a military version of the VHF omnidirectional range, or VOR. And these basically tell you a bearing, a distance between you and the said Tacan or VOR, and if you're trying to navigate across country or to a certain place that has a Tacan, say an aircraft carrier, then obviously you tune into these and it should take you dead point straight to it. So we'll have a look at Tacans at Cobaleti. So if we just zoom in, this beautiful little symbol here denotes the Tacan symbol. Kilo Bravo Lima, these are the letters that are transmitted in Morse code. Once you have dialed into that channel, you should hear the Morse code in the helmet if you have the volume turned up. And if I can figure out how to do that in the Goshawk, I will give it a go for you. But I usually don't bother with the audio. So yeah, this is the Tacan symbol, channel 67X, and every airfield south of the border of Russia has a Tacan. So pick another one. Let's go for Zakumi. No, of course that's not. It's not part of Georgia. Go for Sanaki. There we go. So yeah, anything that's Georgian will have a Tacan. Anything that has any Russian influence will not. And you'll also notice that anything with Russian influence will also not have ILS. They'll have NDBs to guide them into the runway, as you can see there. And Sochi, full of NDBs in the Russian section of the map. But yeah, so we'll hook onto the Tacan of Kobaleti, and I'll show you how to follow that. Just as an aside, this looks like a VOR, VHF omnidirectional range, and these come with navigation frequencies, where this is put into a tactical air navigation set inside the cockpit with a channel. This will just go into your nav radio, like you would put in an ILS frequency. So there is what looks like to be a VOR on the map here, but I believe that is the only one of its kind in it. I could be wrong, but anyway, let's get on with it. So we'll jump into the cockpit and we'll head towards Kobaleti. Right, so first things first, you are going to want to make sure that your Tacan set here is switched on using the right or left mouse button, and you're going to want to tune the channeling. For Kobaleti is 67X. X and Y are not transferable at the moment. I'm sure that might come at a later date. And to change the channel, for the single units, it's right click on the top of the circle here, so we get that to 7, and for the 10s, it's for this at the side here, right click at that as well. So 67 pops up. As you can see, we've got the Tacan symbol up anyway, so we could just fly to it, but what's the point in that? Where's the fun in that? So if we draw the scale in so that's out of the picture, click on Tacan, as you can see we've got a heading, a steering bug basically telling us which way to go, and then also we've got the bearing here, how far away it is and how long it will takes to get there at this current speed. And to add a little bit extra to that, if we click course deviation indicator, we can also put that in. So if we bring that round, the course deviation line should match up with the course line as we get closer to the Tacan bug. There we go. Basically what we need to do, turn left and keep that as close to the middle as possible. So if we were to lose that for whatever reason, maybe a technical glitch or whatever, we still have this guiding us as well. So let's see if I can get the, there we go, is that Tacan? Right, okay, so that's unavailable at the moment. I believe this is the audio panel, and if you flick the Tacan switch up here, you would get the Morse code in the headset. We've got markers there. What's that? No, okay. No, so we're unable to do the Tacan oral sounds. So we'll just have to go with visuals. So we'll come out of pause now and get going. Okay, so we're going to make a left turn to 017. As you can see, we have a marker on our heading tape, but as you can see, if we were to use a flight plan, you would see that we are slightly off. So if we bring it to the left, this should start working its way in to the course line. There we go. It's getting closer, very slowly, but it's getting closer. And all we need to do is to make sure that that stays in line, is to turn to that heading and stay on it, basically. So if there's any wind shear or anything that's blowing you off of course, then obviously you will need to correct. As you can see, I'm already off slightly. So we're going to head towards the Tacan, trying to keep the course deviation indicator as close to that course line as possible. You only have to come away slightly, because once that starts drawing closer to the course line, you're going to want to get on that heading without going over and then having to draw it in from the other direction, which is not fun, because you just be flying S's until you get to the point of interest. So you can see it's making a very, very slow movements towards the central line there. But there we go, we have it central, and the idea is to try and keep that central until we get to Cobaleti. And again, I'm already drifting. It could be a slight side wind, of which I will have to correct that by flying slightly off to the left to make sure I keep that centre line. So Cobaleti is just a little ways over off my nose there. You can see the hangars there in front of us. Where the Tacan seems to be slightly off there. I'm coming up to Cobaleti now. See if I can correct this course line before we get there. Be handy. I'm not sure where on the airfield the Tacan is. Not quite on the course line, because I seem to be veering off slightly even now. But as you can see, we've got to Cobaleti. I could have done that without the course line and the course deviation indicator, but I just thought I'd make that a little bit more interesting than just flying in a straight line, because does anyone find that interesting? Anyone? No? You at the back? Okay. Right, so we'll move on to ILS then. Right, now we're going to take a look at the ILS. I'm currently out over the Black Sea, heading towards Cobaleti. So what I'm going to do is configure the aircraft to grab the localizer once we get into the area. And what will happen is we should get a glide slope and a azimuth to give us bearing and height. So just going to jump into the cockpit. Okay, so what we're going to need is the frequency for the ILS. In this case, Cobaleti is 111.50, and we're going to put it into the nav radio here. So right click until we get 111, and then right click here until we get 50. Now you'll see that ILS has popped up here. Now what I'm going to do is unpause, start to configure the aircraft, get the wheels down, get the flaps down, and once we get a little bit closer I will point a few more things out to you. Also to note that anti-skid is put on because I'm going into an airfield and not an aircraft carrier. So let's unpause it. Right, so we're going to need to get it below 200 knots. So throttle back, and the bearing for the runway at Kobuleti is 70 degrees, so we want to shift over slightly. As you can see, there's already a glide slope marker there. I'm not sure why that's showed up. We'll click ILS and now we've got an azimuth, which is telling me I'm slightly to the left. Now if we start heading towards this way, you can see it's starting to shift over ever so slightly. Now we're central. Now we need to try and keep that line central. You can see it's gone off to the right. Now we're below 200 knots, gear down. First notch your flaps down, throttle up slightly. As you can see, we've got localizer and glide slope information on the HUD as well. And full flaps and trim out. As you can see, we've got the error bracket there. We want to match up the vertical velocity indicator here with the error bracket. That coincides with the AOA indexer here, so we should get an amber circle when we've got it bang on. Let's throttle up slightly. Remember, throttle controls the error bracket, trim controls the angle of attack. Pretty straightforward really. As you can see, we're slightly to the right, to the left, sorry, so we're going to need to draw that back in again. So turn the nose to the right. Don't want to be too aggressive with it, we just want to bring it in ever so slightly. Now we have the extra help of actually having the runway in view, so I would normally do this in fog or at night, but as this is just basically trying to teach you how to do it, that's not too much of an issue, but that's what we're aiming for obviously. And as you can see, we're not in line with that at all, and the cross is not perfect in line with the angle of attack. So bring it over slightly, and we're going to throttle down slightly because the error bracket's way too high, and we want to match the error bracket with the trim, so we're going to trim up a little bit more. And you can see the cross is now basically central, so start bringing the nose round. We dropped the error bracket slightly, so throttle up a little bit. As you can see, we have our AOA indexer dropping slightly, so we're going to throttle back slightly because we want to descend, but we also want to keep it so that we don't drop out of the sky. So I've got full flaps down, as you can see here. No air brakes as we don't really need them. Doing basically 130 knots, which is a good approach speed. Good carrier approach speed. Now most people would just bury this into the runway. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to flare slightly once I get to the runway. A lot of people think that Navy pilots just slam it into the floor for the hell of it, but you've got to remember that these people are trying to preserve the life cycle of the aircraft as well, so if they're approaching an airfield they're going to flare, because what's the point of slamming it down? It's just lazy flying. So yeah, Just keep that error bracket on the AOA, keep the cross as is, and you're good to go. And obviously you've got it here as well on your ADI. Oh, drifting off slightly, no problem. If you keep the AOA pointed at where you want to land on the runway, that's usually a good indicator of where you're going to touch down. So I need to throttle up slightly. Error bracket has dropped. Okay, so we're now 400 feet up, not very far away at all. 4.8, 9, I don't know where we're drifting off from, but yeah, here we go, and we're just crossing the threshold. Throttle back, flare until it decides it doesn't want to stay in the air anymore, and we're down. Good stuff. Air brakes out. Just let it roll. Tap the brakes slightly so it doesn't drift off in any direction. There we go, the anti-skidder's done its job, and we're taxiing. And as you can see, I'm in the lovely 100 Squadron RAF colours, and will provide a link for those in the description. It comes with 4, 208 Squadron, 100 Squadron, 19 or 92 Squadron. Those two I can never quite remember which is which. And there's also a Naval Squadron livery in there as well. So well worth a download. Anyway, that's ILS, and that's it. That's the whole video. Take care, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.